Welcome to Value Plays Only, where Fierce Guardianship isn't free, my commander costs mana. Today, we have Nick from the Top Deckers playing Brigid Clackhan's Heart, aka Brigid Down's Mind. This is a creature combo deck leveraging Gaia's Cradle in the command zone to pump out an infinite mana win. His hand contains Arbor Elf, Crop Rotation, Worldly Tutor, Nature's Rhythm, Tarnished Citadel, and Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. His Luna Mulligan is a Springheart Nantuko. John is playing Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. This deck looks to cast and flip Heliod as soon as possible. Once in this position, the deck looks to land a wheel effect to set up a massively discounted instant speed win. His hand contains a Frantic Surge, Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, Sea of Clouds, and Meticulous Archive. His Luna Mulligan is an Echo of Eons. Tyler's playing Rograkh, Son of Rograkh, and Silas Renn, Seeker Adept. This is the fastest deck in the format. It uses Rograkh to its highest potential, blazing out Grixis flavored wins as early as turn 1 or 2. His hand contains Demonic Tutor, Orcish Bowmasters, Talisman of Dominance, and Undercity Sewers. His 3 Luna Mulligans are Fierce Guardianship, Praetor's Grasp, and Windfall. Dan is playing Najeela, the Blade Blossom. This 5-color good stuff pile is packed full of wins. In addition to Najeela specific combos like Derevi and Grim Hireling, it can win with Thassa's Oracle or Underworld Breach. His hand contains a Demonic Tutor, Lotus Petal, Scrubland, Volcanic Island, and Ancient Tomb. His Luna Mulligans are Brain Freeze and Elvish Spirit Guide. And with that, let's see some value plays. Nick starts things off with a Tarnished Citadel as land for turn. He casts an Arbor Elf. Nick then passes the turn. John plays a Sea of Clouds as land for turn. He casts a Mana Vault. He casts Lotus Petal. John passes the turn. Tyler plays an Undercity Sewers as land for turn. Into play tapped, triggering to surveil Lion's Eye Diamond into the grave. He casts his commander, Rograkh, Son of Rograkh. Tyler passes the turn. Dan plays an Ancient Tomb as land for turn. He casts a Lotus Petal. He taps out for his commander, Najeela, the Blade Blossom. Dan then passes the turn. Nick untaps and draws. He plays Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth as land for turn. He casts an Esper Sentinel. Nick then passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays Meticulous Archive as land for turn. Into play tapped, triggered to surveil, leaving it on top. John then casts his commander, Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. John then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He casts a Chrome Mox. Esper triggers and Nick draws. He imprints Orcish Bowmasters. He then casts Talisman of Dominance. Tyler passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays a Volcanic Island as land for turn. He goes to combat and swings Najeela at Tyler. It triggers to make a 1/1 warrior tapped and attacking Nick. They take the damage, and Dan passes the turn. In his end step, Nick casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing Tarnished Citadel, searching up a Gaia's Cradle to the battlefield. The turn then moves to Nick. Nick untaps and draws. He plays Witch Blessed Meadow as land for turn. Into play untap, paying 3 life. He casts his commander, Brigid Clackhan's Heart. It enters and triggers to make a token. He activates Arbor Elf to untap his Gaia's Cradle thanks to Yavimaya. The table throw up in their mouths as Nick casts Growing Rites of Itlimoc. It enters and triggers to add Kyrion Rangers to hand. And he casts it. Happy with what looks like 5 Gaia's Cradle activations next turn, Nick passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He casts Grim Monolith. Esper triggers and Nick draws. John pays 2 life to activate Heliod to transform. In response, Nick hard casts Force of Vigor, targeting Heliod and Tyler's Talisman. John and Tyler beg Dan for help as this puts them both in the dirt. Dan says he likes it this way and Force resolves, destroying the permanents and John's hopes of playing this game. John then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He casts Talisman of Indulgence, saying he didn't even need that other rock. Esper triggers and Nick draws. Tyler then casts Gamble with 1 card in hand. The table cheer him on as he searches up a card in hand and randomly discards Demonic Tutor. Having cleared his Gamble challenge, Tyler passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays a Scrubland as land for turn. He casts Demonic Tutor. Esper triggers and in response, Nick casts Worldly Tutor. In response, Dan casts Miscast. Nick activates Quirion Ranger, returning Witch Blessed Meadow to hand to untap Gaia's Cradle, and uses it to pay for Miscast. Worldly Tutor then resolves, searching up a Ranger Captain of Eos to the top of his library. Dan then pays for Esper. He then searches up a card in hand. Dan goes to combat, swinging Najeela and his warriors at Tyler. Najeela triggers to make 2 more warriors, tapped and attacking Tyler. He takes the damage, and Dan passes the turn. Nick untaps and draws. In his first main phase, Brigid triggers to transform. He plays Witch Blessed Meadow as land for turn, into play untap, paying 3 life. He casts Vivian, Monster's Advocate. It enters and Nick looks at the top card. He activates Brigid for 4 white mana. He activates the -2 ability of Vivian and then casts Ranger Captain of Eos. Vivian triggers to put a Grand Abolisher into play. Ranger Captain then enters and triggers to search up a Seed Cradle Witch. He casts Seed Cradle Witch. He casts Summoner's Pact, searching up a Walking Ballista to hand. He actually needs to get a green creature here, but with his infinite mana he's about to make, anything would win the game. Nick activates Witch, targeting Brigid. He taps Brigid for 6 green. He activates Witch again, untapping Brigid. He taps Brigid for 6 white. He can present a loop of untapping Brigid with Witch and swapping between making more white or green, keeping at least 1 of each in his pool to keep the loop going. He does this until he has infinite mana of both of his colors. He then activates Witch with his infinite mana to make all of his creatures infinitely large. He casts Walking Ballista with X equals 1,000,000. He activates Ballista over and over, pinging down the table one by one until they're all dead. And with that, Nick wins the game. Today, we have a 2-for-1 deal. In this game, John is again playing Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. His hand contains a Commandeer, Snap, Hydroelectric Specimen, Urza Saga, and Tundra. His London Mulligans are Dramatic Reversal and Invasion of Acabios. Tyler is again playing Rograkh, Son of Rograkh, and Silas Renn, Secret Adept. His hand contains a Ragavan, Nibble Pilferer, Final Fortune, Thassa's Oracle, Tainted Pact, Witchclaw Talisman, Blood Crypt, and City Traders. Dan is playing Zhulodok, Void Gorger. This is a big mana colorless random number generator. It looks to cast discounted high CMC cards to cascade into a win. It usually wins through a glaring Fleshraker loop. His hand contains a Liquid Metal Torque, Staff of Completion, Bygone Colossus, and Ancient Tomb. His 3 London Mulligans are Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Sojourner's Companion, and Kodoltha Forgemaster. Nick is again playing Brigid, Clackhan's Heart, aka Brigid, Down's Mind. His hand contains an Esper Sentinel, Drannith Magistrate, Collected Company, Nature's Rhythm, Walking Ballista, Windswept Teeth, and Temple Garden. And with that, let's see some value plays. John starts things off with an Urza Saga as land for turn, getting his first counter. He passes the turn. Tyler plays a Blood Crypt, into play on tap, paying 2 life. He casts a Ragavan, Nibble Pilferer. He then casts his commander, Rograkh, Son of Rograkh. He casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. Tyler passes the turn. Dan plays an Ancient Tomb as land for turn. He takes 2 to cast Liquid Metal Torque. Dan then passes the turn. Nick plays a Windswept Teeth as land for turn. He plays Life and Cracks it, fetching up a Savannah. He casts an Esper Sentinel. It resolves and Nick passes the turn. John untaps and draws. Urza Saga triggers to get its second counter. John plays Tundra as land for turn. He casts a Copy Artifact. Esper triggers and Nick draws. Copy Artifact enters as a copy of Esper Sentinel. John then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. Tyler plays City Traders as land for turn. He goes to combat swinging Ragavan at Dan. He takes the damage, and Ragavan triggers to make a treasure and exile Nexus of Becoming. In his second main phase, he casts a Wishclaw Talisman. Both Esper trigger, and John and Nick draw. Tyler looks around and decides Dan is the least ahead. He pays 1 to activate Wishclaw, searching up a card in hand and giving Wishclaw to Dan. Tyler then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He pays 1 to activate Wishclaw, searching up a card in hand and giving Wishclaw to John, over the sound of all Nick's protests. Dan then casts Soul Ring. 2 Espers trigger, and John and Nick draw. He then casts Staff of Completion. Everyone reads this card a few times to figure out how big of a deal it is, and it resolves. Dan passes the turn. Nick untaps and draws. He plays a Flooded Strand as land for turn. He pays Life and Cracks it, fetching up a Plains. He casts a Drannith Magistrate. The table all strap in as it resolves. Nick goes to combat swinging Esper at Tyler. He takes the damage, and Nick passes the turn, discarding to hand size. John untaps and draws. In his first main phase, Urza Saga gets his 3rd counter. In response, John floats a colorless mana. He then searches up a Soul Ring to the battlefield. He activates Wishclaw, showing the table he's searching up an Ancient Tomb, and giving Wishclaw to Nick. He plays Ancient Tomb as land for turn. He casts the One Ring. Esper triggers and Nick draws. The One Ring resolves and John gains protection from everything. He taps the ring to draw a card. John then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He goes to combat and swings Ragavan at Dan. He takes the damage, and Ragavan triggers to make a treasure and exile Kozilek the Great Distortion off the top of Dan's library. Tyler wishes he had a better punching bag at this point. In his second main phase, he casts Thassa's Oracle. The table sit up straight as Thassa resolves and triggers. Tyler holds priority and casts Tainted Pact, 2 Espers trigger. Tyler pays for John's and Nick draws. Priority slowly passes around as the 3 non-Tylers huddle together to make a plan. John steps in and casts Silence. Esper triggers and Nick draws. Tyler hems and haws a bit, but then Silence resolves. John then casts Commandeer, exiling Hydroelectric Specimen and Metal Misstep as an alternate cost. Commandeer resolves and John gains control of Tainted Pact. He starts exiling slowly, waiting for something good. He passes Hullbreaker Horror and Drannith before stopping on Manifold Key, adding it to hand. Thassa's trigger then resolves, and Tyler does his little scry, keeping 1 on top. Tyler then passes the turn, saddened by this turn of events. Dan untaps and draws. He opts to pay 5 for the Might Stone and Weak Stone. 2 Esper trigger, and John and Nick draw. It enters and triggers to give Drannith -5/-5, killing it. He then taps out for a Sculpting Steel. It enters as a copy of Soul Ring. John points out his juicy One Ring, but Dan says he has a plan, and he needs that mana. With a perplexing play, Dan passes the turn. Nick untaps and draws. He plays a Temple Garden as land for turn. Into play on tap, paying 2 life. He casts his commander, Brigid, Clackhan's Heart. It enters and triggers to make a token. Nick then passes the turn, discarding to hand size, including Nature's Rhythm. John untaps and in his upkeep, the One Ring deals 1 to him. He taps the One Ring to draw 2 cards. John casts Manifold Key. Esper triggers and Nick draws. John plays Mana Confluence as land for turn. He casts Snap, targeting Brigid. It bounces to hand, and John untaps 2 lands. He casts Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Dan asks what this does, and John says it's the anti-cascade card that kills free spells. Boromir resolves, and John casts Rhystic Study. Tyler says this can't stand, and casts Fierce Guardianship. Esper, and Boromir trigger. Tyler cries at how they just read Boromir, and Fierce is countered. John and Nick then draw. Rhystic resolves, and John passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He goes to combat swinging Ragavan at Dan. He takes the damage, and Ragavan triggers to make a treasure and exile Honor Worn Shaku. Tyler asks what he has to do to get some good flips around here, and goes to his second main phase. He casts Brigid, God of Storytelling. Rhystic triggers, and John draws. Tyler then passes the turn. In his end step, Dan flashes in Disruptor Flute. Esper, and Rhystic trigger. John draws 2, and Nick draws. Flute resolves, naming the One Ring. The turn then moves to Dan. Dan untaps and draws. He casts his commander, Zhulodok, Voidgorger. Rhystic triggers, and John draws. He then warps Bygone Colossus from hand. Cascade triggers twice, and Rhystic triggers. John draws, and Dan starts exiling into a Desecrate Reality when John points out the Boromir. Dan slams his head at already forgetting it for the second time and opts not to cast it. He lets his second Cascade fail to cast also. Bygone Colossus then resolves. Dan moves to his end step, and Bygone Colossus is exiled. Nick untaps and draws. He plays Gaia's Cradle as land for turn. He casts Land of War Elves. He casts Lotus Petal. Esper, Rhystic, and Boromir trigger. Nick now slams his head down. John then draws 2. Nick recasts Brigid. Rhystic triggers and he pays. It triggers to make another token. Nick then has to pass the turn, discarding to hand size. John untaps, and in his upkeep, the One Ring deals 2 to him. He plays Polluted Delta as land for turn. He pays Life of Craxit, fetching up a Hollowed Fountain into play, untap, paying 2 life. He casts his commander, Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. It resolves, and John pays 2 life to activate his Transform ability. In response, Tyler tells Dan he better let Ragavan in for this, and casts Chain of Vapor, targeting Thassa's Oracle. Esper, and Rhystic trigger. Nick draws, and John draws 2. Everyone stands up straight at this targeting, and John responds with a Swords to Plowshares, targeting Thassa. Esper triggers, and Nick draws. Thassa is exiled, and Tyler gains a life. Chain of Vapor then fizzles, and Heliod transforms into Heliod, the Warped Eclipse. John then passes the turn, discarding to hand size. Tyler untaps and draws. He goes to combat swinging Ragavan at Dan, begging for a playable card. He takes the damage, and Ragavan triggers to make a treasure and exile Gemstone Caverns off the top of his library. In his second main phase, Tyler plays Command Tower as land for turn. City Traders triggers to sacrifice. Tyler floats 2 mana in response. He casts Mana Vault. Brigid, Esper, and Rhystic trigger. Tyler pays for John's triggers, and Nick draws. Then Tyler makes a red mana. He casts Final Fortune. Brigid and Rhystic trigger. John draws 1, and then he responds with a Spell Skite. Nick responds with an Emerald Charm, targeting Gaia's Cradle to untap. Esper and Rhystic trigger, and John draws 2. Gaia's Cradle untaps, and then Spell Skite resolves. Final Fortune then resolves. Tyler, surprised by this, passes to himself. Tyler untaps in his final turn and draws. He asks if Dan will let him in this turn, and Dan says hell no. Tyler begs and shows him the only card in his hand. Dan, for some reason, agrees. Tyler goes to combat and swings Ragavan at Dan. He takes the damage, and Ragavan triggers to make a treasure and exile Mirror Enforcer. In his second main phase, Tyler casts Demonic Council. Brigid, Esper, and Rhystic trigger. Tyler holds priority and cracks his LED to get Delirium. John draws 2, and then Nick draws. John then flashes in a Fellwar Stone. Esper triggers, and Nick draws. John casts Words of Wisdom. In response, Nick floats 5 green and casts Collected Company. Esper and Rhystic trigger, and John draws 2. Company then resolves, putting a Grand Abolisher and Badgermole Cub into play, triggering to Earthbend his planes. Nick keeps responding with a Boseiju, targeting Heliod. John activates Spellskite to redirect Boseiju to it. Spellskite is destroyed, and John searches up an island to the battlefield. Words then resolves, and everyone draws 1 and John draws 2. John finally has the discount he needs and casts Coveted Jewel for free. In response, Tyler casts Into the Floodmaw, targeting Heliod. Brigid and Rhystic trigger. John draws, and Tyler makes a mana. John then flashes in Machine God's Effigy. It enters as a copy of Heliod, and the original goes to the command zone. Floodmaw then fizzles. Coveted Jewel then enters and triggers to draw 3. John flashes in Weathered Runestone, Mana Vault, and Memory Jar. He casts Chromatic Orrery. He casts Invasion of Arcavios. It enters and triggers to search up a Prosperity to hand. He casts Prosperity with X equals 6. Each player draws 6 cards. John goes into the tank on how to cleanly win here without Hullbreaker Horror, which is in exile. He casts Seagate Restoration with 14 in hand. Tyler responds with a Vampiric Tutor. Brigid and Rhystic trigger. John draws, and Tyler makes a mana. John overloads a Cyclonic Rift to make this a bit simpler for him. Tyler responds with an Ad Nauseam. Brigid and Rhystic trigger. John draws, and Tyler makes a mana. John responds with a Flusterstorm, with 6 copies on Vamp Tutor and the other 12 on Ad Nauseam. Tyler's spells are countered, and all the non-land, non-John permanents are bounced back to hand. John then responds by tapping the One Ring to draw 3 cards. Seagate then resolves to draw 19 cards. John flashes in Sonic Screwdriver. He casts Mox Diamond, discarding a land as it enters. He casts Arcane Signet, Moon Silver Key, and Lotus Petal. He casts Displacer Kitten. He casts Abeyance, targeting Tyler, to lock him out of casting spells for the rest of this turn. Displays her triggers to flicker Chromatic Orrery. He casts Time Twister. Displays her triggers to flicker Orrery. He holds priority and casts Even the Score with X equals 24. Displays her triggers to flicker Orrery. He flashes in Day's Undoing. Displays her triggers to flicker Orrery. Everyone shuffles their hand engraved into their library and draws 7. He then draws 24 cards. With Time Twister on the stack, John flashes in Blind Obedience. Finally, he can present a win. John can cast several spells to flicker Coveted Jewel with Displacer Kit, making more and more mana each time and drawing in bursts of 3. He can then put a large X draw spell back on the stack and then flash in a Time Twister effect, one of the several in his deck. This means John can keep casting spells over and over without decking out. He can now extort them all through Blind Obedience using colorless mana thanks to Chromatic Orrery. He does this over and over until the table is dead. While not deterministic, the table get the picture and don't need this to go on any longer. And with that, John wins the game. So what did we learn today? Sometimes what may seem like an innocent stacks piece will blow all your opponents out back to back to back turns. Turns out stacks is great after all if your opponents just can't read. If you have any tips for the video, leave them below. Subscribe if you feel like it. Until next time, keep making value plays.
Why? He's holding 3 mana up, which Dan never does.
Yeah, never does.
All right, let me rephrase it this way.
What?
I'm helping you.
He's helping you. If you don't win, it's you versus him.
Because my man's gonna tap with like 4 fucking cradle taps. So like
that is worrisome.
Is it?
It's up to you.
Yeah. You're saying that you will be like out of the game.
What if I don't hit?
I said that too, but you don't care. And he's the best deck in the format.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Is I'm
literal
like,
fuck.
Wind it back.
Dude.
Have you seen this Heliod?
That's so insane.
What if I just
I want
say-
wrong
I'll
side
just
to be
say-
defending me. This fucking fringe bullshit
Work
should
on your
die.
politics.
Because if
Yeah.
I guess what?
I got it back, bitch.
Win. Oh,
Damn.
Pass.
like my card quality?
I don't like mine.
Oh.
Okay.
Next
Make
is
a treasure.
Yo, hang on, crack LED. Hang on.
Yeah, wait, hold up. You're right.
Yo, he can do
Beginning
it.
of combat on your
He
turn.
got 7
Draw a
mana.
card. I think you will get a land, but I just
Yeah.
don't think I can.
Oh my god,
I'll
he
get like
didn't
a,
give me.
I'll get like a crappy land. I'll get a fetch into
Why
a
is this so
shot.
stressful?
A fetch into a
Because we all
shot.
want it.
Yeah, I know. You just. Yeah, you guys can draw.
Oh, he's so greedy, dude.
He's strong.
Thanks, John. I know you're not just saying that.
I would never.
Yo,
Yo, LED for it.
Stop! Dan, stop!
These are the rocks.
These are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How close am I, dude?
Dude, you're close. I don't want to help you, but can Sculpting Steel be anything?
Copy of any artifact on the.
Wow.
That is good, but like.
All right, Dan. No,
You got a soul
no,
ring,
Dan, you
man.
passed. You have a soul ring. What the hell?
I mean, I'm just kind of thinking like
I've fucking one ring.
having
That's
such a
insane,
hard time
man.
getting.
You were gonna
Yeah.
get roasted in the
Yeah,
comments,
yeah.
brother.
I know.
You're gonna get roasted by my turn.
Oh,
I know.
no.
I'm gonna get roasted. What does he do?
It says if you cast a spell and you spend no mana, it gets countered.
Oh, okay.
It's the anti-cascade card.
Oh, it gets
You-
counted
yeah.
for me, brother. Give me something castable, brother. What
Hey,
the fuck
you
is
can
that?
cast
It's
that.
only a rock.
What the fuck is that?
Yo, it
Dude,
taps,
that's a
it taps
rock.
rock to make
You've been
mana.
hitting me for rocks.
It's
and
like
this is
bad
your
Relic
rock.
Legends.
Okay.
Doing better shit than that.
Wow.
That's crazy.
This is the rock you're gonna find. Okay.
Here's a birdie.
This is what you're gonna
Oh,
get.
Mystic. God, you want to see what real power looks like?
Someone stop this person.
I drove my car for a while.
I just showed him 3 more edges.
G-O-P.
There's a desecrate reality.
Counter.
No. Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah,
What am
I
I
literally
doing?
said it is the anti-cascade card.
No, you're right.
I said that so
You're right.
clearly to
You
you.
cast it though,
You
right? Petal.
Mhm.
Petal is countered. You are correct.
And there's an S for an Arista.
See, I did the same
Yeah.
thing.
I did the same thing. There's
Yeah.
a fearsome
Yeah.
migrant
I was
doing
making fun
less
of you,
than
dude.
nothing.
2 triggers, sir.
John, let me read Boromir. Your voice is just melts away. The warnings.
You draw.
It's warnings all the time.
Target passes.
Oh, that's wild.
This man's really cool.
Wow.
Dan, what are we praying for that I hit off you, huh? All his
There's
dust.
really
Can I get
not
to
a
all
lot.
his dust? 1, 2,
Can I
3,
read
4,
all his
5,
dust
6,
is-
7. I could.
There you go. Flash and spell.
Come on.
What are you trying? What are you trying to do?
I mean, yeah, I'm looking for a win, but like,
What am I?
Dude, it's like a 1 in a million. You gotta let me try.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
no.
I'm a flash and spell, guy.
Anybody want to let me in? Dan. God damn.
If you're willing to show me the card in your hand, and I think it's not bad.
Cabal ritual.
Dude, what are you looking at? Oh,
I'm
my
looking
great.
at your
I thought you were looking at my top of my library. Like, grab the top 10 cards.
I'm
Like,
playing now. Dan, are you letting him in or what?
Yeah,
Let's keep cooking.
hell yeah. All right.
I don't know why. It's literally costing me
Yeah, you're dying.
cards and life. But fuck it.
Oh,
this?
you
Ah,
hit your
God.
guts.
7 mana
Shucks.
golem.
Ah.
Hey, affinity for artifacts though.
Yeah. You know what? I actually really could have used that guy. But sadly, can't use him. Because he's gone.
I see that card. That's good.
It has
That's a lot.
one ancient tomb.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
We are not the same. Dude, I was hoping at some point I could get to Born. And then, like, maybe if you drew me 40 cards, I could try to, like, keep
That's
up.
why I was like, nah, silence that man first. Now we'll draw a bunch of cards.
Oh, dude, I was like...
And it's got too much blue to be free.